Today we are going to be dyeing with both golden and red onions, and we're going to show you the steps to take to get different colors from both. So I have been dyeing with golden onion for many years now, but I haven't done a lot with the purple onion skins. So I wanted to do a video showing an experiment you could run using both of those onion skins to really dial in what the color difference is. To run our experiment, we're going to take skins from both the golden and the red onion. We're going to put them in glass jars in the same pot, heat them at the same time. We're going to dye the same kind of yarn into both of them. And then we're going to see exactly the colors that we can get. And then you'll be able to take both of those forward. So as with any experiment, you want to control as many factors as you can. So we are going to be setting up two jars at the same time. One that is going to have our golden onion skins and the other one that is going to have the red or purple onion skins. It's going to have the same weight in both. The yarn itself is going to be identical. It was mordanted in the same way at the same time. For a more in-depth conversation on mordanting, check out the video I did on acorns. I'll put a link below. The important thing to know is that there's two skeins. The white skeins are pre-mordanted with alum, and the tan one has been pre-mordanted with iron. The iron one should give us, in both cases, a much darker color. But as you can see, we're setting up jars to be as identical as possible. So the first thing that we need to determine is the weight of wool that is going to be going into each of the jars. I decided in the end to add a couple more of the alum mordanted skeins, and so each of these comes out to about 60 grams. Now sometimes you want to dial in the exact amount of dye material to wool or fiber. Sometimes it's 100%, sometimes it's 1,000%. In this case, I wanted to get yellows, so I did 50%. So there's 60 grams of wool, so I'm looking to weigh out 30 grams of each of the skins. So here we are with the golden. As you can see, it's dried. It's already been chopped up in a big bowl. And now I'm going to add 30 grams of that into one jar. So you might be wondering how I came up with 50%. I know from experience dyeing with onion skins, if I do 100% weight of fiber, that's say 1 pound of skins for 1 pound of fiber, it's going to overshoot yellow. I'm going to get into much more of a brown. I really didn't want that this time. I wanted to do a yellow. Now you can take your onion skins and add them straight into your jar or your dye pot. I add an extra step, which is this paint bag. They're really inexpensive. You get them at the paint store. You can reuse them. And by adding this and then putting the bag into the jar or the dye pot, it allows me to, once the onion skin has been simmered, to just remove it, leaving behind the concentrated dye pot. And now I don't have to worry about the skin and the fiber getting tangled up together. Now I'm going over to the red or purple onion skin. And again, I'm just going to weigh out another 30 grams. I'm going to get another bag. As you can see, this size, this is the smaller size. This is the 1 gallon size. They also come up into a 5 gallon size, which is great for a lot of stew pot size, which is the next sort of size up, or the size of pot you're going to see in this video that I'm going to use to hold the jars. So again, I'm just looking for 30 grams of this dried purple onion skin. I can also mention a great trick that I use at the grocery store with onion skins is I collect a whole bunch of skins right at the grocery store, and then I just put 1 onion in. I can tell you that 1 onion is worth about 26 cents. So it's a really great way to get a big bag of dried onion skins. So that's kind of what I used. It takes me a few trips, and I've also started using a lot more onions in my cooking. And now we're ready for some water. So this is my dye pot, and instead of dyeing in it directly, I'm going to dye in it indirectly using more of a double boiler method process, which is we're going to put 2 jars in with the bags and the onion skins. And doing it this way, we're going to simmer this on the stove for about 1 hour. You don't want to boil the skins. You want to simmer. So it's usually about 80 degrees, which is roughly about 155, 156 Fahrenheit. Here we're adding water, or I'm adding water into the jars itself. Obviously, then I'm going to add water to the pot, and then I'm going to take it back over to the stove. Now, back over to the stove we go. At this point, we're going to turn the heat on, and I'm going to raise that temperature until the water gets to about 80 degrees Celsius or about 160 degrees Fahrenheit, giving them a little bit of a stir. Because of the double boiler setup, even if the water within the pot starts to boil, the water in the jars doesn't. It stays at that simmer. And now back to the sink. While our onion skins are starting to heat up on the stove, it's a perfect time to soak our fiber. Whenever you're adding fiber into a dye pot, you want to make sure you soak it in water ahead of time, and that just allows your fiber to sink more evenly into the pot. Now, I tend to separate my alum mordanted skeins, that's the one on the left, from the iron mordanted, which is the darker one on the right. And the reason is, as you'll see at the end, if you pre-mordant with iron, it just ends up getting so much darker that if you soak it all together, you risk some of that iron leaving the iron mordanted wool, attaching to the alum mordanted, and kind of getting some contamination or some dark speckling. In this case, I wanted to have separate results, so I made sure to soak them separately. And here I will be soaking them in warm water for about 20 minutes, trying to replace all of those little air bubbles with the water. And now back to the stove. At this stage, we have simmered our onion for that hour, and we're having a look at it, and it's looking great. I'm noticing that the onion skins, instead of floating at the top, are starting to sink down into the pot, which is exactly what we want to see. And now what we can do is lift that bag with the onion skins right out, and you can see the great aspect of these bags, which is how easy it is just to have your pots ready to go. I used to sort of do the whole decanting process through a filter, and I know I've sort of given all of that up, and now I just do this. And then once those bags are cooled, I just put them straight into the composter. So that's the great part of natural dyeing, is being able to put things right into the composter. So now our dye pots are ready to go. We've got that fiber soaking, and I'm going to bring it back over into the pots and start adding them in. And we're going to add the same amount of fiber to each side. So here we go. Here's the iron going in as step one, and then I'm going to add in the alum right afterwards. And you can see, because it's been pre-soaked, it just sinks right in. It's not floating at the top. You're not having to fight with it. Soaking it is such an important part of the whole process. And now here I'll come along, and I'm going to add the alum mordanted skeins. Here we go. And those will go in, and you can see that onion. It almost looks like it's going to go purple, but it actually doesn't. That's the interesting thing about it. So at this stage, we're just going to keep adding the fiber to the pot. I think in each of the sides, there's going to be about 6 of these 10-gram skeins, which is enough in these 1-gallon jars for them to still move freely and give even results. So once I finished adding the skeins, I'm going to check it out, of course, and then I'm just going to let them to soak for about that 1 hour once the temperature gets about 80 degrees or that 155 Fahrenheit level. And then just keep checking, making sure that I'm happy with the color. And as you can see, that purple or red onion skin is starting to give you the color that you're expecting, which is more into the greens, which is really exciting to see. So this is at about, I think this is about the 45-minute to almost an hour mark. You can see that with that 50% weight of fiber, I'm getting that really rich, rosy yellow, getting more into the browns, and then this is more of the green on the left-hand side. Checking those out. Now, often with onion, you don't need that full hour because it'll just keep getting dark. So once I'm happy with the color, I'll often let it go a slightly darker shade than I'm wanting because I know I can just dry it. Then I'm going to take it back to the sink and give it, kind of let it cool, and then I'm going to rinse it out at the sink. And here we go. This is our first color. This was the golden yellow, and as you can see, it really came out this kind of rich, buttery. The yellow had really gone quite dark. I could have pulled it earlier for a brighter yellow, but it is such a beautiful golden color. I was pretty happy with it. So that was the first. That was the onion, a golden onion, and now I'm on to the purple or the red onion, and giving that green, that wash, and you can really start to see that beautiful luminous mossy green coming through. I was really happy with the color. Now, I did find that the red onion left a little bit of a variegated effect in the green, and I think if I had left it for the full hour, that probably would have helped with that. So here I am soaking some more wool. I really wanted to do the exhaust baths on both sides to really see if I could get some paler colors. So this is going for another round. We call this is the exhaust bath. And I think I did 2 rounds of exhaust baths. As you can see, there's still plenty of dye left in that pot. I'm really starting to use more and more exhaust baths. You know, you've gone through the whole trouble of setting this all up. You may as well try and get more color from it. So on both rounds, I kept going as long as I felt like there was dye, or what we call chromophores left in that water to take up. Now, you might be wondering how color fast and light fast onions are, and that's the bad news. The purple onion dye comes from anthocyanin, which is not super stable. So you will find that this green will in time become more muddy with a lot of washes and in the sunlight a lot. So I would use this green more for indoor projects like weaving. If you want a really great stable green, you probably want to look at yellow and then over dyed with indigo, which is kind of a classic way to get green. Now, this last set of fiber that is being rinsed is actually the second exhaust. So there has been 2 full rounds of dyeing ahead of time, and there's still tons and tons of dye left in there. I really feel like onion is a really underappreciated dye because it really packs a punch. There's still lots of vibrancy left in that color. So I think at this stage, I could have gone for a 4th round, what we would call a 3rd exhaust, but I was happy with everything and I really wanted to dry it and see the results. And here are the results. As you can see, the golden onion came out with beautiful yellows, as well as the iron mordant, which came out a dark chocolate brown. And then the red or purple onion came out into the greens. As you can see, it was still a little bit variegated. I think if I'd kept it in a little bit longer, it would have been better. So here are just some of the colors you can get from this easy to attain and easy to dye with source of beautiful color. Until next time.